Hi everyone, it's Sean. What up? Welcome back to another video and happy Wheel of Time release week. Yes, the first 3 episodes are up right now on Prime Video and I, for one, couldn't be happier. So we're going to dive into each and every one of them this week, and in today's video we're going to talk about the Easter eggs that I found in Season 3, Episode 1, To Race the Shadow. So if you love the Wheel of Time, if you're as excited about this as I am, or if you're just curious and you're not really into the show just yet, consider making us your home for Wheel of Time news. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell all of your friends. Now, we're not only doing Easter egg videos, I also am doing reviews for every single episode. My review for episode 1 is already up. It went up early this morning. And we're doing breakdowns of each of these episodes as well. Now, the breakdown is where I compare it to the book series. I talk about the plot lines, I talk about how they are the same, how they are different, where they intersect or are amalgamated, and things that may be happening later on or things they are referencing. So look out for that, probably tomorrow morning, followed by my review of episode 2. And we're going to put out 2 videos a day, probably every single day this week. So make sure you're subscribed. Now, since we are talking about Easter eggs for this particular episode, I'm going to do a full 14-book spoiler warning, folks. I do apologize for that, but we're going to reference some things that will spoil things all the way up to and including the end of the series, because when I talk about these Easter eggs, they have far-reaching implications. So if you haven't read The Eye of the World Right Through a Memory of Light, the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson, be forewarned, I may ruin plot points and character arcs from the entire series. Now, I know a lot of you out there that watch my videos don't care about spoilers, and that's what the Easter egg videos are for. They are for all the spoilers, and that's where I have my most fun. So now we're going to dive into these Easter eggs, and we're going to walk through the episode from start to finish. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about this episode from start to finish, and again, full spoilers, folks, both from the show and the books. We start off with Liandrin walking into the hall of the tower, and you'll notice a few empty seats there in front. Now, Siuan Sanche was very smart in not inviting any of the Red Sisters to this particular judgment of Liandrin, because they may vote against her or they may take up arms in defense of her, which, I mean, that is really against Tower law, but she was kind of concerned that maybe some of the other Reds could be Black Ajah as well, so she didn't want to have that happen. Now, we all know how that worked out. There were a number of other Black Sisters in the halls, and they took up arms in defense of Liandrin, and none of them, at least insofar as within the hall of the tower, were Red Sisters. So it was kind of wild to see a bunch of other Ajahs defending a member of the Red Ajah, but it was cool. But either way, I got a kick out of this shot with the 3 empty chairs right in the foreground and all the other Aes Sedai sitting around waiting in judgment of Liandrin. During this fight scene, we get to see this. This is Nynaeve trying to channel the One Power. Now, it's something that's referenced throughout the books for a very long time, the fact that she's a block. In the book series, she can't access the One Power unless she's absolutely seething mad. She's going to be really angry to be able to access One Power, and then she channels in rage rather than anything else. And that has a lot to do with the fact that while she was a wisdom, she would get very upset when people hurt themselves or were sick, because she didn't feel that they should be that way. They shouldn't be hurt, they shouldn't be sick, and they had to get better. So she would get mad at them, mad at herself, mad at the world, and then grab the true source and use the One Power to heal these people. And that kind of turned into a block. Now, a block is something that a lot of Wilders, these are women who learn to channel the One Power prior to going to the White Tower, have. And it could be any number of different things. Could be, at one point in the book series, reference that a man has to be looking at someone for them to be able to channel. Somebody else had to have their eyes closed, which you can't channel with your eyes closed. Nynaeve, for example, has to be angry. But this is a good scene where it showcases the fact that she has her block. Now, we've seen this a couple of different times within the show so far, especially, most notably, in the season finale of Season 2, so Season 2, Episode 8, where she tries to heal Elaine, and not only does she fumble the One Power and can't heal her, she really doesn't do anything that we think a wisdom would do for an arrow wound. She's just all over the place and just is falling to pieces. So a really good shot of this, and it's something that I think is going to be a prevailing theme in the show going forward. Now we have this. I want to talk just a bit about the Black Ajah. Now, all of these sisters that are defending Liandrin, you see her encased in this ball of flame in the center, they are down at the bottom. They are using the same hand motions and pretty much the same weaves for a lot of this battle. And these weaves, I don't believe, are shown as being used by any other Aes Sedai in this battle. So they're like weaves of air that are cutting people in half. They're kind of like big throwing stars, or like maybe they're throwing saw blades of air. That's what it seems like to me. But they're using the same hand movements and the same weaves. This is important because in the book series, you can often tell who teaches a sister based on her hand movements. So if she throws a fireball a certain way, it's not uncommon to be able to tell who taught her how to throw that fireball, because once a weave is learned, movements and all, because movements are completely unnecessary. It's not something that is required, but most Aes Sedai learn that way. It's kind of imprinted upon you, and you can certainly channel that weave in a different way to get the same result, but it'll always be weaker and not near as effective as the original way you learned it. Sort of like a little bit of imprinting. So seeing the Black Ajah members all using the same hand movements and the same type of weaves during the battle is a huge nod to the books and the fact that Aes Sedai learn from each other. And the Black Ajah members probably all taught each other this weave, or they all learned it from one person, which I thought was very, very neat. Now we have this. Of course, I have to showcase this and talk about it just a little bit. I talked about it before in the cold open breakdown that I did, but this is the exact opposite reaction you would expect to see, and that we do see, especially in this episode. We'll talk about it a bit later, when an Aes Sedai loses their warder. An Aes Sedai is supposed to feel intense grief, intense loss, sadness. It doesn't cripple them to the point where they can't move, they can't think, they can't act, but it does impede pretty much every aspect of their lives and causes a very, very deep depression. Now, Green Sisters especially get over this by bonding another warder pretty much as soon and as fast as possible, but a lot of Aes Sedai afterwards never bond another warder again because that feeling is so terrible. Now, this member here, yes, she's a member of the Green Ajah for face value, that's her public Ajah, but she is a member of the Black Ajah, and a lot of members of Black Ajah join for very different reasons. Now, there are some people in the books, and some people, especially within the Forsaken or the Chosen, who just revel in pain, and they consider it pleasure. So she is really pumped about losing both her warders here, because this pain that she's feeling, this sadness, this despair, really, really is a good thing to her. So it just goes to show that not everyone joins the Black Ajah because they want to curtail, not curtail, but to forward the Dark One's interests, or the Great Lord interests, that some of them are just sadistic, and that is what I think we're getting from this Aes Sedai here, which is really, really cool to see on screen, and I'm glad they did something like this, because it showcases the fact that not all Dark Friends are created equal, and they're not all there just in service of the Great Lord. Some of them just like pain, and some of them just like causing pain, and that's what we're seeing with her. Next we have this. So this is the 13th Depository. It is a spot in the books where a lot of things are held, and it's really important to this particular episode because a lot of the ter'angreal that the Black Ajah ends up stealing comes from the 13th Depository. And there are a ton of little Easter eggs in here that we're going to talk about, but we know what pretty much most of these ter'angreal are within these scenes. So in this scene here, when Verin is walking in, you can see to her right what appears to be a crystal fluted rod. That is a sleepweaver. There are a ton of different sleepweavers in the book series, and I believe the Black Ajah have stolen up to 20 of them, and 19 of them were recovered within the books. But they also stole other things as well, not just sleepweavers, but sleepweavers are what they really wanted to steal in the books, because they wanted to be able to master ter'angreal and be able to use the world of dreams to their own effects, so to speak. So you have on the right side there that crystal fluted rod that is a sleepweaver, something that you channel into to be able to access the world of dreams. To the left, just above Verin's right shoulder, is a black rod. That black rod creates balefire. That is described in quite a lot of detail in the books, and it is something that Black Ajah does use within the book series to create a weave called balefire. Now, if you don't know what balefire is essentially something that was outlawed within the Age of Legends, and I'll have to do an entire video on it, but the Cole's notes of it is, it's a stream of fire that when it touches something, it deletes it from the pattern, so it burns it out of the pattern. Everything in the pattern has a thread, whether it's a chair, a person, a bookshelf, a deer, a fox, it doesn't matter. Everything has a thread. And when balefire hits something, it burns that thread. Not only does it burn it out immediately, but depending on the strength of the balefire, it burns it out before it actually dies. So if you have a person that, say, get up in the morning, went to the store and purchased a bag of apples, and then came home and then get hit with balefire, the balefire was strong enough to delete them from the pattern to that morning, well, they never went to the store, they never bought those apples, but everyone remembers them doing it. It's a very small example and probably not a very big one with far-reaching applications, but during the Age of Legends, entire cities were deleted with balefire, and it almost unraveled the entire pattern, because everyone remembered all the things that were done, but they were not actually done. It was actually used in a number of times in the book series, bringing people back to life. At one point, Matt Cawthon just gets ruined by a few bolts of lightning by Robin, and then when Robin is killed with balefire, Matt's back alive, well and good again. There's another point where a Darkhound chews through a door and seems to have slobbered on the people inside. But when that Darkhound is killed with balefire, well, guess what? Never made it through the door. Everyone inside is just fine, even though everyone remembers it. So, balefire is an important aspect of the book series, and I think it will be in the show as well. Next we have these. These are the Dominion bands. So in the book series, there is a type of Adam that is used for men. Now, this has two different bands that have to be worn by women to be able to control a man who can channel. Now, even if two women are wearing these bands and they're both using it to control a man who can channel, it still isn't a perfect thing. In the book series, the Adam that a woman uses to control another woman is basically an involuntary circle. They have to be able to learn how to channel. The person who's wearing the bracelet, and most of the Seanchan don't even know that. And the person who is wearing the collar has no say in anything. They have no say when they embrace the source, no say in what they do with the source. It's the person wearing the bracelet that basically does all the rules. They can cause them pain. They can restrict them from doing things. They can't hurt the wearer of the bracelet. There's a ton of different things they can do, and the rules are pretty hard and fast. Now, in the show, during season 2, it seemed those rules were played with a fair bit by the writer's room because Egwene was able to, through sheer force of will, remove the collar and hurt her captor. That would never have been able to happen in the book series, and in fact, there are entire chapters dedicated to the fact that it can't happen. You have to have someone else intervene. Now, in the book series, the Dominion bands, the male Adam, acts much like the female Adam in the show. So, in other words, as long as you have enough strength and force of will, you can eventually, quite possibly, overcome your captors and not do exactly what they want to say. But either way, this here is one of the bracelets. It mirrors the bracelets that we see the Seanchan are wearing in the show for when they call her Damane. So this one is for the men, we believe, and I covered it in my Easter egg video for the Cold Open quite some time ago, and we're pretty sure what this is, so we probably will at some point or another see another one of these bands as well as a collar to go along with it, because that is a massive plot point in the book series, and I can't imagine them not doing it in the show. Next, we have a couple of things here that I want to talk about. Well, one thing in particular, we have a red twisted stone door frame. Now, there are two of these within the book series, and they are incredibly important to a couple of character storylines, but especially Matt Cawthon's. And it's something that a lot of the fandom didn't think we would ever see. These door frames lead to the realm of either the elfin or the aelfin. And they're affectionately known as snakes and foxes, because they look like us a little bit, but they're combined with either a snake or a fox. And they feed on people's emotions. So when you go through these door frames, you go to one of the two places. The door frame is connected to one of them. And in one of the places, you can ask them 3 questions. And they have to give you answers that are absolutely true. So Rand goes through the door frame and he asks him a few questions in the book series. We're not sure what he asked, but it led him to go to the waste. Matt Cawthon goes through the door frame and asks, and he is told a bunch of things about his life further on. Things that have to happen, things that has to get done. Confuses him because it's told in riddles and he doesn't really understand what's going on, but that leads him to jump into the second door frame in Rhuidean later on. Now, we're fairly certain that Matt will not be in Rhuidean, at least not initially within the 3rd season, because of all the promotional material we've seen. This talks to the storylines of him being in Tanchico with some of the other people in the show, such as Elaine, Min, Nynaeve, and Tom. But we see one door frame here. That other door frame's also a possibility. We don't know where this one goes or what it does. The other door frame within the book series was in the in Rhuidean. When Matt went through it, he tried asking questions again because he wanted to know the answers to the original questions that they gave him. And they didn't answer anything. So he got frustrated and just started ranting. And when he was ranting, he asked for 3 things. He asked for a way to be rid of Aes Sedai. He asked for his memories, in the holes of his memories to be filled. And then he asked to leave. So when he did that, he was given a Foxhead medallion that basically stops all channeling. So any direct channeling against him doesn't work at all. The holes in his memories that he had from being healed from the dagger were filled with the memories of some of the most important and influential generals and warriors of the entire history. So he became a absolute amazing general and basically learned how to fight just like that. And then when he asked to leave, it was a good thing because he didn't set any price. one of the things that the Elfin and the Elfin want is a price. You have to go there, you set your terms. I will give you this, you give me these things. He didn't do that. So when they kicked him out, they hung him, and when they hung him from his Ashendari, which is sort of like a sword spear. So it's a sword on the end of the spear. It's the iconic weapon that Matt wields for the rest of the book series. So seeing this makes a lot of people very, very happy, mainly because we didn't know if we'd ever get those door frames in the show, and now we're seeing one within the 13th Depository, which is a big deal for a fair number of character storylines. So it interacts with Rand's storyline, Matt's storyline, and Moraine's as well. During the Fires of Heaven, Moraine and Lanfear get in a big fight during Kyrian, and they end up going through one of the red twisted stone door frames that is in the back of a wagon, and the force of their fight melts that door frame, and they are effectively gone. So this is a big, important thing, and a lot of people from that are book readers were very excited to see this, myself included. Next, we have this. This is the infamous dice. We talked about a bit about this in another video I had, but essentially it is a ter'angreal that suspends luck or creates luck. So when you flip a coin, it would land on heads every single time for 1,000 times. It would land on tails. It would land on its side. It creates some form of weird luck by channeling through it. So we're seeing things that are written specifically into the books in the 13th Depository's ter'angreal, and they're really, really cool to see. All right, next up we have an alabaster figure in behind Naomi here, and this alabaster figure is another sleepweaver within the book series that you can channel spirit into, and enter the world of dreams. So a number of these were stolen by Naomi, and it mirrors exactly the plot within the books where they're stealing things from the 13th Depository. Now I want to talk just a little bit about this. Naomi uses a weave on both Verin and her sister in the show, and you can see the weave enter Verin's sister and just absolutely cause complete havoc with her, and she collapses. Now Verin, on the other hand, it appears that she resists the weave in some way, shape, or form because it doesn't go in near as fast or near as hard, and then she sort of hangs for a second or two and then slumps. I'm not saying she's faking, but I am saying that it likely didn't hit her near as hard. And we see this later on when Verin is awake and well within the first 3 episodes and actively participating in the show when her sister is not. So this goes along with the fact that Verin is one of those characters in the book series that is always prepared, is always 2 or 3 steps ahead of everyone else, and maybe perhaps was suspecting something like this was going to happen. And within the book series, this is entirely plausible. Again, I gave a 14-book spoiler warning pretty much specifically for this reason. But Verin within the book series is a dark friend. She is a member of the Black Ajah. She joined ages ago when she was researching them and they found her out. And she used her time within the Black Ajah to study them and to help gather information about them to bring them down from the inside. So this here in the show is probably a callback, or a very, very light callback to the fact that, yes, Verin is Black Ajah, and while she may not know Naomi is Black Ajah, she possibly did because Verin had an extensive list of every member of the Black Ajah that she had. She, at the very least, suspected something was going on and was prepared and able to defend herself when her sister, in fact, was not. So I think this was a call out to that, Verin's knowledge and preparedness, which I think was really cool. Next we have this. This is an iron disc, another sleepweaver. This sleepweaver, again, channel into it and you can enter the world of dreams. It's one of those things that comes up a couple of times within the books. And again, really cool to see something like this. Now we're going to talk just a bit about this scene here. So in this scene, during the Battle of the Tower, when the Black Ajah are trying to break Liandrin free, she has these 3 women link with her. Now, when they link with her, it's something we haven't seen since season 1, at least. We've seen involuntary links during season 2 with the Shanchan. But during season 1, we did get to see Nynaeve, Egwene link with Lady Amelisa and take on a bunch of Trollocs. Now, this here, you're seeing 3 sisters link with a 4. So this is 4 sisters strong. And they do something akin to what Egwene does all by herself during season 2 with Rhenna. So when she is a Damane and she is involuntarily linked to Rhenna through the Idam, she creates an explosion of air that is similar in size and scope to this. This is our first indication in the show of the level and scope of Egwene's power, and I think it basically is saying that she is as strong as these 4 sisters combined, and these 4 sisters are no joke. They are not weak sisters in the one power. Every one of them is strong or strong-ish in their own aspect. Maybe not the strongest of all known channelers, but they are not weak. So this is a callback to exactly how strong Egwene is, and she has not even finished her training yet and come into her full power yet. So we're going to see some wild stuff from them later on in the show, I'm sure. I'll talk about this. This is a scene where Verin wakes up and she takes a look at her sister and she's sort of comforting her. I want to talk about the hair. The hair, at least to me, looks very, very similar to a chapter icon that is mirrored around the twisted stone ring that Verin gives Egwene. And so on a lot of ter'angreal chapters within the book series, when Egwene is entering the world of dreams, or other people are, that chapter icon is that twisted stone ring. And it looks exactly like the way Verin's hair is made up to look right here. I'm not saying that this is completely on purpose, but there's almost no way it isn't, because it looks so much like that swirly ring at the beginning of those chapter icons that I think this is a callback to the fact that Verin gave Egwene that ring in the book series when, in fact, she hasn't, at least not yet, within the show, so we get to see it in her hair here. Really cool. I thought this was really neat. One of the things I picked up on during the cold open, but I didn't want to talk about it back then because it does give spoilers for possibly later on in the first and second and third episodes, but they're all live now. So, and again, we're giving 14 book spoilers, and 3 episodes are out. So if you haven't watched all 3 episodes, we can talk just a bit about this. Now I'll talk about this. So in this scene, Alana is outside in the streets of Tarvalon fighting some of the Black Ajah, and one of her warders dies. Now this is Ivan. Ivan dies during this scene, and Maxim lives through it. Now in the book series, Alana also has 2 warders, Owen and Ivan. Now, when the show first started, a lot of people were wondering why she kept Ivan, and they changed the word Owen to Maxim instead. And there was a lot of speculation that it was because Tom's nephew, his name was Owen, and he could channel the one power, and that's part of the reason why you get involved with Rand in the book series, because he saw a lot of his nephew in Rand, and if that story ever came out, it would be confusing to have similar characters with similar names. Now, we haven't really seen much of that on screen, a little bit of it. Tom has talked about it a bit, but it hasn't been a major plot point or really hammered home a whole lot. So what we're seeing here is we're still seeing one of Alana's warders die. In the book series, she still loses one warder, but she loses Owen. Now, Owen dies within the 2 rivers prior to Perrin arriving. And here, she's losing this warder, Ivan, within Tarvalon, still there at the battle. And we get to see a very different reaction from Alana here than we got to see from the other Green Sister who lost her warders. The other Green Sister loved every second of it. This is crushing Alana. She is incredibly upset about this. Now, in my warder video, I covered what happens to an Aes Sedai when she loses a warder. I also covered what happens to a warder if they lose an Aes Sedai. We get to see some of that here, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching to see. But again, a little bit different than the book series. She's losing a warder with a different name, and she's losing him a bit earlier, but this is a direct call out to the fact that she does lose a warder, and that is an important plot point in the book series, and I believe it will also be an important plot point within the show, because in the book series, part of her losing that warder kind of scrambles her a little bit. She's not quite herself afterwards. She's pretty upset. She goes into bouts of crying at night, and then she makes rash, impulsive decisions, which leads to her just out of the blue bonding Rand against his will. So in the book series, Alana does that, and the bond doesn't work as well as she's expected, because she can use compulsion on her other warders. Every Aes Sedai can, to be able to get them to do what she wants. However, she couldn't with Rand. It was like trying to push a mountain, because he could channel. So I think her losing a warder here, again, very important plot point for the books. I think it's going to be an important one for the show as well. All right, next we have this. Speaking of Rand, we're going to talk about Rand and Mat just a little bit. Now, in the book series, after Rand gets all his holes in his memories filled, he starts speaking the old tongue more and more and completely fluently. But before that, he did fairly often, just on his own, because the old blood within him was so strong that he could speak the old tongue without even thinking about it. We're seeing that within the show now with Showmat. Showmat has been, well, at least a couple of times within the first episode, uses the old tongue and doesn't even realize he's doing it until people are looking at him funny afterwards. So when someone mentions Calendor, he knows exactly what that is, because it's a word in the old tongue that means this, the sword that is not a sword. So this is a neat little callback to that. I like seeing Mat spouting the old tongue here and there, but he already has all of those memories. He's having a hard time with them. This has to do with the effects of what happened to him during season 2. So that's probably where a lot of this is coming out from. Either way, really very neat. The other thing I want to mention, the other Easter egg here, is actually referencing Callandor and Tyr. Now, in the book series, Rand goes to Tyr prior to going to the Aiel Waste. Now, he makes a decision within this episode that he is going to the Aiel Waste, and he's going to be heading out there to talk to the Aiel because they are his people. Now, he goes to Tyr first, draws Callandor, announces to the Westlands that he is the Dragon Reborn in that way. Then he goes to the Aiel Waste afterwards after getting some answers from the Red Twisted Stone Doorframe. It's not happening here because he's already announced himself to the world in Falm, and we've already seen that happen during the end of season 2. So them talking about Tyr and talking about Callandor makes it canon for the show, which is a big Easter egg and a nice nod to the book fans. And we've seen in some interviews that they will likely go there in follow-on seasons if we do get them, but we're not going there just yet. Either way, we get to see a couple of cool things here. Mat spouting the old tongue like he does a couple times this episode, and a mention of Tyr and Callandor, which is very neat. Now we're talking about the scene here. This is where Moiraine gathers pretty much all the main characters of the show. You have Bane, Shiad, Loial, Nynaeve, Egwene, Mat, Perrin, and Rand, and she's telling them to stay put, cover their weapons, cover their hair, be quiet, don't go out, don't make a scene. This mirrors exactly what she told them the very first time they were ever in a big city in Berlin. Now, she basically said, don't draw attention to yourselves, don't be stupid. And that's what she's saying here. And what do? In Berlin, they went out and drew attention to themselves and they were stupid. What are they doing in Tar-Valon? The same thing. They're going out and drawing attention to themselves and being stupid. So it's really neat that it parallels those two little parts of the books, and I wanted to include that in this. Now we're talking about this. So when Rand is kind of tromping through the city with Perrin and Mat, he has 3 little shadows behind him. You have Yenda, Bane, and Shiad, Maidens of the Spear. Now this is an important thing because in the book series, the Maidens follow him absolutely everywhere he goes because they know that Vakar Karn was the son of a maiden. And when a maiden becomes pregnant, she has to give the child up. She always does, most of the time, at least anyway. People that join the Maiden of the Spear, they tend to choose the spear over everything, even potential children. So they never know who those children are because they're given up in secret. So they never really know anyone that was a child of a maiden. Karn, though, according to the prophecies, is a child of the Maiden. This is the only child that any of the Maidens ever know to come back to them, so every single Maiden of the Spear within the book series feels very close to Rand. Not only do they carry his honor because he is the Karn, but because he is a special thing to them because they never have and could never have that, and now they finally have a child come back to them. So a lot of them treat him like a sister. A lot of them treat him like they're his sisters, like he is their brother. Some of them treat him like he's a son. Some of them treat him like he's a grandson. Some of them treat him like he is just a very close friend. But every single maiden feels responsible in some way to him or close to him in some way because he is family to all of them. So it's really nice to see them kind of shadowing him through the city because you see that a whole lot in the book series. Now I want to talk about this. So this is a scene where Mat, Rand, and Perrin are in the inn, and of course Mat's getting himself drawn, blowing the horn of Valir and being all like kind of cool about it. But we get to see this. Now, this happened in the book series. So within the book series, the end of the Great Hunt, Rand fights a Shamael in the sky. So he literally is in the sky, projected over the entire sky of Falm, and he is fighting a Shamael with a sword. And I'm not going to lie, it worked well in the books. It would have been cheesy's old get out if they tried to do it on screen, and I'm kind of glad they didn't do that portion of it. But this is a call out to that. Happened on the top of the tower, but here they're putting him in the sky fighting a Shamael, which I thought was very neat and a callback to what happened in the book series. And again, these drawings in the book series were pretty important because they made it far and wide all over the world. And it's one of the ways that people knew that Rand was a dragon, especially the White Cloaks and some of the Dark Friends, because they had these drawings with them and they could tell who he was from the drawing. So a nice little call out to that scene in the books. Now I want to talk about this. Perrin's eyes are golden right from the start in this particular episode. And that's mainly because he's, I believe, sort of kind of starting to make peace with being a wolf brother. He struggles with it for quite some time in the book series, for at least the first few books, until he finally makes peace and he just kind of accepts the fact that he can talk to wolves. And when he does, his life is much better for it. Seeing him calm and cool about his eyes and not really anybody mentioning it, I'm assuming that that's likely the case already. He's not mentioned a ton about it in this episode. In fact, I don't believe it was mentioned at all. However, I think it will be brought up at some point or another, because it is a really important part of Perrin's character in the book series. Not only are his senses heightened, he can smell emotions, he can track people, he can hear things that other people can't see, he can see in the dark, but he can also speak with wolves, and he uses all of those things, including speaking with wolves, to his advantage within the book series. So seeing his golden eyes here right from the beginning, I think he's already made peace of that. I don't think that's going to be a major plot point going forward, but it's a nice call out to it. Now, this, snakes and foxes. The Elfin and the Ielfin. We've seen the red twisted stone door frame, so we know they're canon in the show, at least in some way, shape, or form, but this just doubly proves it. Essentially, this is a game that's played within the book series that is almost impossible to win unless you absolutely cheat. You are racing both the snakes and the foxes to get to the center of this board. And the only person, I think, and you folks that have read the books can correct me if I'm wrong down below in the comments, the only person that is mentioned of ever winning this in the books is Matt. Because Matt, his insane luck in the books just lets him repeatedly roll exactly what he needs to roll to win. But no one else, including Oliver, a young boy that sort of follows Matt and his band of the Red Hand around for quite a number of books in the book series, can ever win, because the game's not designed to win. It's designed to teach you a lesson that in some things in life, you can never win, and when dealing with the Ielfin and the Elfin, you can never win. No matter what you ask for them, it will not be near as much as the price they're getting from you. So again, another neat little call out here, and I know there's no merchandise, but man, I'd buy this game. Any leatherworkers out there, any people who make games, if you happen to make one, send me a note. I'll buy one from you, because I think this would be cool as all get out. All right, now we're talking about this. So this is Egwene's accepted test. And we talked about this a bit during season 2 when Nynaeve went through the rings. But there are 3 arches here. Arches. There are 3 arches here, and Egwene has to go through them for her accepted test. And you notice there are 3 different, I want to say pots, maybe chalices. I'm not quite sure what you call them, but they're on that stand there. One is white, representing the female half of the true source, Saedar. One is black, representing the male half of the true source, Saedin, and then you have one in the middle that is a combination of both. After exiting from each one of these arches and getting through the trial within, the novice who's becoming accepted is then washed clean with water from one of these chalices. This is a very important part of the accepted test. And I loved seeing this here, because as soon as I saw them, I was like, yep, that's neat that they included that. It's one of those things that was a nice nod to the accepted test of the book series, even if it wasn't a central part of what they did in the show. Very cool, nonetheless. Again, I want to talk about this scene here. So here you have Sorry, Swan. You have Swan, Alvarian, and Lyanna. So Lyanna is the keeper, Swan is the Amyrlin, and then you have Alvarian. Now, within the book series, the person who stands here with them is the Mistress of the Novices, and the Mistress of the Novices in the book series is Sheriam. So that's not her, obviously, it's Alvarian, and I think this is a nice nod to the fact that within the book series, after Swan gets deposed, Elaine becomes Amyrlin, and she chooses Alvarian to be her keeper. So you have Swan, the current Amyrlin, with the current keeper and the new keeper that we will likely get this season, based on if they follow the exact same lines as what happens within the book series with the coup within the tower. So that was a really nice little framing shot here with the old and the new keeper, as well as the Amyrlin in the middle. Really neat to see. And this one I think is just kind of funny, and it may not really mean anything, but Lan's favorite color is green. You've noticed that Nynaeve wears a lot of green in the books. She wants to be a member of the Yellow Ajah because she's a healer, and in the book series, she always wants to be a healer. She doesn't necessarily want to become a member of the Yellow Ajah. She doesn't like or trust the Aes Sedai, but she certainly is trying to learn as much as she can from them, to use that against them, and to learn as much healing as she can. But in the show, all the Aes Sedai seem to be wearing the colors of their Ajah. But a lot of the times the show, Nynaeve is wearing green. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but a lot of her outfits have green or green aspects to them. And you take a look around her room, the bedrolls are green, the comforter in the bed is green. There's a whole lot of green everywhere. Green is Lan's favorite color. And we know that Nynaeve is absolutely smitten with Lan, and vice versa, he's smitten with her. So I think this was a nice little nod to their relationship. I thought it was very cool. Now we're getting to these letters that Elaine gives out. Now, she gives these to a member of one of I don't know if it's a servant, tower guard, but it's definitely a member of the Andoran people that come to the tower because they're dressed in Andoran servant garb. But she gives 2 letters. Now, one of them in the show goes to Tyr, in this to garner support for Rand, and the other one goes to her mother, also to garner support for Rand. And I thought it was kind of neat that they showed this, and they actually showed her handing over 2 letters, because within the Dragon Reborn, there is a plot where she gives Rand 2 letters. The first letter, she is lovey-dovey, she is loving, she is open, she is... She is all of these things that Rand expects. The second letter, she's cold, she's hard, she's angry, and it all has to do, and that whole little mini plot line has to do with immaturity. So you have Elaine not really being mature, not really understanding how relationships work, and Rand is the exact same way. So they're both trying to do things to make each other like each other and to ingrain each other in the short time they have in Tyr. And by her sending him 1 letter, she gets, well, maybe that's too much, I'll send a different letter, and then he takes one the wrong way and then takes the other one the wrong way, and it just becomes a big problem for Rand. He actually rings the entire Stone and Tyr when he reads one of the letters because he's so shocked at what's in it. So I think this was a callback to that scene where she gives 2 letters to Rand, but of course in the show it's 2 different letters, because right now, even though she has had great chemistry with Rand so far in the show, it appears that Aviendha will be her initial love interest, according to the scene that had the 2 of them together. So I think this was a little call out to that scene in Dragon Reborn, which was very neat, I thought. And again, here we go. This is Rand and Elaine. Now let's go back to it. Rand and Elaine. And you can tell the way Rand's looking at Elaine, he is 100% smitten with her. So at this point, Rand loves Egwene, Selene, and Elaine. He hasn't really had feelings yet for Aviendha, and he hasn't really had feelings yet for Min. In the book series, Rand has 3 different people that are involved with him. He has Elaine, Min, and Aviendha. Now, Elaine, Min, and Aviendha are friends in the book series, or they become friends, but that is pretty much it. Rand has an individual relationship with each one of those. What I believe they're going to do in the show, considering what they've done with Elaine and Aviendha, is they'll probably make it a more modern take on that type of relationship. It might be a poly relationship, because we have Elaine and Aviendha already expressing interest in one another and sort of kissing and spending some time together. And then you have Rand here absolutely smitten with Elaine, and Elaine kind of making eyes at Rand at the same time. So I think they're going to kind of update and modernize that relationship a little bit, kind of like they've done with other aspects of the show, which I think is a really neat idea. All right, I want to talk just a bit about this. This is during Egwene's accepted test. One of the things that is sort of blink if you miss it, take a look at the water, just covered in blood. So when they talk about Rand killing Perrin and Mat in this scene, I think he's killed a lot more than that. I think he has absolutely gone just wild. He is wearing the red coat. We see him on the cover of some of the book series. Really a very neat thing. I think I actually have it back here. Maybe not, but really a very neat callback to the books, him wearing the same outfit that he's wearing on the cover of a couple of the books. And then we have, of course, we've seen this before when they've released some of the promotional material, and we already discussed it a fair bit, but this is a scene of a possible future where Egwene is Amberlin, and Elaine is quite obviously a green sister, and Nynaeve is a yellow sister, according to her skirt. And that happens in the book series. So eventually, at some point or another within the book series, Egwene actually gets picked as the leader of the Rebel Aes Sedai and becomes Amberlin. So I think this was a really nice little call out to that plot line, that storyline that happens in the future in the book series, as to something that happens here. Now, of course, she doesn't go against Rand and try to gentle him or anything at that point. He has not gone completely mad yet, but nice little call out either way. I thought it was very cool. Now we're getting to this. This was one of those scenes where I rewatched again and again and again. This is Rand sitting outside just staring at Dragonmount. He knows he's the dragon. He's already proclaimed himself. He's come to peace with the fact that he's the dragon. And Moiraine sort of kind of has, but Moraine's trying to tell him what to do. So when she's out here telling him what to do, and he flexes his muscles a bit and says, no, I'm not going to do what you say. I want to do what I want to do. I'm the dragon. Having Dragonmount sitting behind her as he says that just gives this scene that extra bit of oomph that I really, really, truly loved. I thought it was very neat to see something like that. All right, up next we have this. Zashana Lan's sword. Now, in the book series, Lan doesn't have multiple swords. He has his one power-wrought sword that was the Sword of Malkiri Kings, and he carried it with him from the beginning of the book series. Now, here he's saying that it is a sword he hasn't wielded yet because he doesn't feel worthy of it, but they do talk a bit about power wrought metal and a power wrought sword. Essentially, a power wrought sword is metal made from the one power. It is as strong as Hearthstone. It cannot be broken, it cannot be shattered, it never needs to be sharpened, it always keeps its edge. It doesn't have any other crazy magical properties, but that's enough. During the Age of Legends, a lot of these things were made for simple soldiers. Now, at the time, a simple soldier sword that was made of power wrought metal now becomes a king's sword or a general's sword because it is so sought after, because the Aes Sedai have lost the ability to make these types of weapons. And it's really neat that they called out the fact that this was his father's sword. And it looks very plain. It's a king's sword, but it's incredibly plain because it was likely at one point or another just some normal soldier's sword during the Age of Legends and just survived long enough and became mythical enough to become a king's sword. Really cool nonetheless. Now, yes, I want to talk a little bit about Maiden's Kiss. Nice throwback that we actually got to see this in the show. It was really cool. Matt does play it within the book series, and I like the fact that he's the first person we get to see play Maiden's Kiss on screen, as well as in the books, and he does not do so well. Apparently he's not a good kisser, folks. Leave it at that. But what I wanted to talk about also within the scene is in the background. In the background there, you can see the Royal Lion of Andor. Now, that's just all over the place within these, within this place they're in, and this is essentially an inn. So they talked about this inn a few different times in season 1, in season, maybe not so much in season 2, but definitely season 1, and they called it the Light's Blessing. So within the book series, there's an inn called the Queen's Blessing in Camelin, which is where a lot of the storyline that happens within the Light's Blessing happens in the show. So I think this is a throwback, basically showcasing where the Light's Blessing came from, why this is kind of a call out to that in the Queen's Blessing in Camelin. And they did change things up a bit because they wanted to still showcase some of the stuff that happened within that inn in season 1, but they couldn't go to Camelin because they only had budget for so many sets and so many things, and making an entire set for Camelin really didn't make a ton of sense since they were only there for a few scenes and they wanted to really showcase Tar-Valon. So having the Royal Lions of Andor in the background kind of goes to show that proprietor's Andoran, and that's why all of them are there, especially Elaine, because it's sort of central to the story in the book series. It's a nice nod to it in the show. Again, back to Elaine and Aviendha, the fact that they updated their relationship a little bit. I do like this. I think it's a welcome and nice change for the show. Sort of modernizing a little bit of a dated ideal. I thought that was really very neat. All right, again, quick shot of here before Rand goes to bed. Egwene is fixing his wrap on his wound. He took a wound at the end of season 2 that he will keep with him for the rest of the show, as far as I'm concerned, because in the book series, when he took that wound, that was a wound that would never properly heal, and it broke open all the time. He was a little bit strenuous, broke open. He breathed wrong, it broke open. He ate the wrong type of food, it broke open. Not really, but it was a plot device in the books to showcase that wound would never really heal. And they drew attention to it here by her kind of wrapping it a bit here with some cloth. And I think we'll keep seeing this over and over again within the show, and I think it will be just as important as it is in the books. Now this is when Moiraine's coming down the stairs. Of course, there's a quick, very blink-if-you-miss-it shot of a Grey Man in behind her. Now we do see the Grey Man come later and go after Nynaeve and stab her a ton of different times, which we'll talk about in just a second. But this is, again, a quick blink-if-you-miss-it moment of the Grey Man following Moiraine down the stairs. This is where we're talking about the Bubble of Evil from the book series and the Forsaken involvement of the show. So these scenes that we're talking about now, Lanfear is essentially causing them, but in the book series, Lanfear doesn't cause them. They're a bubble of evil, sort of like as the Dark One's shifting around and becoming more active. It's like bubbles rising from the bottom of a pond. Say there's a frog in the bottom of a pond, he shifts around a little bit, a few bubbles come up from underneath him, and they rise to the top, and they pop. The top is the pattern. The bubbles are evil. They're called bubbles of evil in the books. Weird stuff just happens, and it's kind of wild. And what happens here is sort of kind of the same what happens in the books. So there are 3 different instances. The one with Matt in the book series is him playing cards with a bunch of lordlings, and the cards come to life, and he has to fight the cards. Not the case here. This sort of just mesmerizes him while Nynaeve gets wrecked behind him. But I want to talk a bit about these cards. So we'll talk about the top 3 cards here in a second. But the card to the left, that's Uno. I don't know if you recognize that or not, but that is 100% Guy Roberts as Uno. You see the eye patch, you see the shield with the Shanaran symbol on it. That is 100% him. And then when we dive into the cards here, you have Brigitte to the left, Arthur Hawkwing in the center, and to the right, Amaterasu, who is the female opposite of the dragon. So the champion of the light that is not a man in the book series. Only referenced in the compendium in like a very brief little bits of notes, not much, but it is there showcasing this. So I think this whole deck of cards is Heroes of the Horn, and Matt blew the Horn of Valir, so of course Matt would carry cards with all the Heroes of the Horn on them. I would love to take a quick look through the rest of these cards and see if Matt himself is there, because he made himself a Hero of the Horn by blowing it, according to what they said at the end of Season 2. Very neat. So here we have Perrin. This is another Bubble of Evil call out. So in the book series, Perrin's axe comes alive and essentially attacks him. He's with Fail at the time. He's not by himself. He's not with Loyal. And he has to kind of get her out of the room so he can fight with his full strength to have that axe not kill them both, so to speak. So here we're seeing it actually hits him a couple of times, and Loyal ends up being the one that saves them, which I thought was a nice little call out to that Bubble of Evil in the books. And again, not a Bubble of Evil in the show, something different. Lanfear is doing this as we learn in the next few scenes, but still a nice little call out to that scene in the books. Now this is our first shot of the Grey Man. Now the Grey Man fighting Nynaeve does nothing and stabbing Nynaeve a bunch. This is kind of neat. It's not really a part of what's going on here. We find out from Lanfear in a bit that another Forsaken is doing this. We're going to talk about that at the very last image of this Easter egg video. But we had a couple shots of the Grey Man here, and I just wanted to showcase them because in the book series, Grey Men are a little bit different. They're just regular people. They look as plain as possible. So plain, in fact, that your eyes slide off them. But here they look kind of wild. They look like an old school vampire from like Nosferatu. Very neat either way. Here we go. This is where Rand fights his reflections. So all of these different Rands come out of the mirrors. This is a call out to that scene in the books where, of course, the same thing happens. They come out of the mirrors and Rand fights them. Rand figures out to bust the mirrors, and when he busts the mirrors, all the little tiny shards start putting more Rands out, and they're little Rands. I don't know if any of you out there have seen Army of Darkness with Bruce Campbell, directed by Sam Raimi, one of my favorite movies, absolutely. Similar thing happens within that when Ash is in the windmill and all the little Ashes pop out of the mirrors and he has to fight them. Although Rand isn't going to drink a pot of boiling water after he eats them. That's not what happens here. This is the nice little call out here. So when when Perrin stops the axe as it's flying at him, during his Bubble of Evil, or during his Lanfear-induced horrific event that's happening. I'm still going to call it a Bubble of Evil, folks. It's just easier that way. We know Lanfear did it. He stops it with his ring. Now, this is his wedding band that he had with Layla, and he's been wearing it the entire time since he killed her in the first season, and he killed her by accident with an axe. And I think it's just sort of a nice little ending to that whole grief process with him, where he kind of starts to accept that what he did was a mistake, because the same axe or a similar type of axe comes at him, and this wedding band saves him because it stops, and then stops him from having his whole hand chopped off because it gets caught in the wedding band, and then it falls off, breaks in half on the ground. I think this signifies the end of his relationship, or at least his grief over Layla, which I thought was a really smart way of doing that, and I thought it was really very cool. Here's that shot of the Grey Man I talked about. Again, blink if you miss it moment. Like, you can barely see this. It's so quick. I think it took me 10 minutes to get the screenshot, and it's still not super clear. But again, yeah, they look a little bit more like an old school vampire, Nosferatu, or if you've ever played the game Nightmare from the 80s, where you put the VHS tape in, and yes, Gatekeeper. That's what he looks like. That's who this person looks like. Again, a little bit different than the Grey Man in the books, but really cool nonetheless, especially considering the fact that they're not really showing this. You don't get to see this up front. You're not seeing it out in your face. It is blurry. It is in darkness in the background. It's kind of not out there, but it still looks very cool. And again, this is the other scene here. Rand in the book series, he comes through and he busts all the mirrors. And again, like I said earlier, all the little guys crawl out of the bits of the mirrors, but this is enough to kill all the reflections for the show. He doesn't have the little guys to deal with afterwards, and he's ended up saving Egwene himself by this big burst of power. Now we're moving on to the scene between Lan and Nynaeve. This is before everyone starts leaving, before Lan and Moraine leave. He gives her his mother's ring. So in the book series, he gives her the Ring of Kings, the Malkiri King's Ring, and she wears it around her neck for the entire series. Something a little bit different here, but again, just a nice little call out to that relationship and that same type of scene in the books. I thought it was very touching moment when they did this, and they are, I want to say, my second favorite relationship within the entire book series. My top relationship is Perrin and Fael. I'll have to do a whole video on that, folks, but Lan and Nynaeve, very, very, very sweet call out here to how they are in the book series. All right, here's our final scene that we're going to talk about, final Easter egg. This is, we believe, to be Ajah Gim Keran. So he was cast in the third season. I did an actual release of his casting here in the channel quite some time ago. And he is not super important in the book series, but he is a White Cloak questioner who had a big hand in a few different storylines. The Tanchico storyline, the Ebu Dar storyline, both of which we believe are mirrored this season within our own Tanchico storyline within the show. And he essentially guided and controlled a lot of White Cloaks. He's a lot of power and influence within the White Cloaks, within the questioners, and he was the ones that sent a lot of White Cloaks to Almoth Plain. And his job essentially was to kill Randall Thor. He was told that is what he's going to do. And he starts losing members of his family because he's not very good at his job. He's not killing Rand. He doesn't do anything that really does anything to great success. So a lot of his members start dying, and they start sending Fays from different Forsaken or different Chosen to him to sort of intimidate him and to have him do different things. At one point, he's under control of Samael, a few other Forsaken, and he ends up dying by being drowned in Nevada brandy, which is very fitting for his character because he's a bloody terrible person, and it was really, really kind of a satisfying end to his arc. But again, not a major arc within the book series. He was not a major character that really affected the story in any huge way. So seeing him like this being turned into a gray man by Moghedien is satisfying for a couple of different reasons. One, we never really get to see Shadowspawn being made in the books. I mean, it was talked about a bit, but it all happened mostly off page. So we're actually getting to see that now, which was a treat to me to see, at least anyway. And two, knowing that we are unsure of how many seasons we have left or how much time they're going to give Rafe and the production team, or how many seasons they're going to give them. So it could be 8 episodes a season for 4 more seasons. It could be 1 episode with 6 seasons left. Or 6 episodes left. We don't really know. We know they're going to have to cut a lot of stuff out of the books. And cutting Keran's storyline probably is a smart idea because, again, minor storyline, not super important to the books. There are people out there that would argue against that every storyline is important, but it's one of those things that you can cut without affecting too many of the major storylines. But they still give us a little bit of a tidbit here with him being turned into a gray man, which I thought was very, very neat. So he is called out by name. He is the Keran in White Cloak because he's wearing White Cloak garb. I thought it was very cool they did this, and we'll likely see more of this in the show, not just this season, but likely in seasons to come, where we get little tidbits or little snippets of characters that have their own plot lines or storylines that aren't totally important and aren't totally worth it to put the time and energy into filming, but we'll get to see them a little bit on screen, which I think would be pretty cool. Anyway, so let's bring it back up big here. There we go. So that was the Easter eggs I had for episode 1. We're going to do similar Easter egg videos for every single episode this season. So you'll see 8 Easter egg videos for me. You're also going to see 8 review videos for me, 1 review for each episode. And you'll see 8 breakdown videos. Review videos, pretty self-explanatory, spoiler for your reviews. Easter egg videos, pretty self-explanatory. I walk through the entire episode and pick out little tidbits that are kind of important to book fans or may mean things to other storylines. We talk about them just a little bit. And then breakdown videos is where I take the entire story of that episode and I break down each storyline or plot line within that episode and compare it to the book series. Some cases they're parallel, some cases they're the same, some cases they're amalgamations, some cases they're brand new, or kind of a call out to certain things in the books. That's where I talk about that and explain that. Those videos are really interesting, especially for for show watchers only, because then you get some sort of idea what's going on behind the scenes in the books as well, and where some of these ideas are coming from, where the ideas are differing. So you're not going to miss any of that. So again, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. You're not going to miss any of these videos over the next week or two. Well, more than 2 weeks, I guess. We probably 5 more weeks of the Wheel of Time. So 5 more weeks of this, folks. When the show's live is when I put out most of my videos, and I super love doing this. It's super fun. So I want to thank you all very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.